Hey everyone, welcome in to our UT opponent analysis of the 7th ranked Georgia Bulldogs, Tennessee's opponent, Saturday at Neyland Stadium. Hey, I'm Vince Ferrara. This is part of Vince's View, powered by Jim Styles CPA. That's where we're at here this morning. Stop by and see Jim, 8930 Cross Park Drive, Suite 3 in West Knoxville. Whether you have IRS returns, financial statements, new business bookkeeping, the personal service here is second to none at Jim Styles, and initial meetings are free. So you should call them, take advantage of what Jim can do for you. 694-4484, 694-4484, JimStylesCPA.com. Now, the Georgia Bulldogs come in ranked 7th, 8th in the coaches poll. 4-0 on the year, 1-0 in the SEC after a dominant performance of a really good Mississippi State team in Athens Saturday night. Kirby Smart's in his second year as the head coach at Georgia. He's 12-5, and he's instilled a toughness and a grinder's mentality in this Georgia team that they haven't had in the past. They've had NFL talent before, but it's been sort of a country club type of atmosphere. That's changed now with Kirby Smart. He's really impacted them. And boy, has he recruited on a high level. Georgia has a loaded roster. They have 11 5-stars and 46 4-stars on the roster. That's, of course, second to Alabama, but there's a gap there between Georgia and everybody else in the SEC. And it all starts with the running game. The running backs, the stable of backs that Georgia has is as good as Alabama or anyone in the SEC, and perhaps maybe the best unit in the country. Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, both of those guys decided to return to Georgia rather than go to the NFL draft. And then you add a freshman from Philadelphia and DeAndre Swift, Brian Herrien, who's played for him. And they have other 4-star running backs that can't even get on the field. That's how deep they are. Georgia averages 223 yards rushing per game. That is terrific. And then going up against Tennessee's rush defense, it's given up 243 yards per game on the ground, 117th in the country. That's a problem, and that's not a good matchup for Tennessee with that running game. Now, Georgia's offensive coordinator Jim Chaney and offensive line coach Sam Pittman are familiar names, both coached at Tennessee. And now with freshman quarterback Jake Fromm running the show for that Georgia offense while Jacob Eason got hurt, I think that's the best thing for Jim Chaney, because now Fromm, who is so smart, he protects the football and makes great decisions. And he doesn't have this big league arm that can be a temptation for Chaney to get away from the running game with. He doesn't have that anymore with Fromm like he would with Jacob Eason. And honestly, Tennessee fans, you know he did with Tyler Bray at Tennessee as well. Fromm has been great for Jim Chaney, so they're handling their business on offense. Now, there's a couple myths that were out there, so a lot of them with Vols fans and other teams, fan bases in the SEC about Georgia from the offseason that you just need to flush. They aren't true. One of them is that they had a terrible set of wide receivers, and the other is that they had a bad offensive line. Maybe they did on paper in the offseason, but that's not the case anymore. They have 8 wide receivers that are either 4 or 5-star rated players, and they're finally starting to play like it. Javon Wims at wide receiver, Terry Godwin. They've got Mecole Hardman, who's a budding star as a sophomore, and Riley Ridley is terrific as well. This is a really good group that's playing well and not dropping passes as much as they had in the past. Now, Tennessee's pass defense, you look at it statistically, they're 11th in the country in pass defense. But let's be honest, they really hadn't played anyone that can throw the football. So Georgia is taking advantage in the pass game against teams when they get their big shots to make plays down the field. The offensive line, as I mentioned, much better. They were dominant against a really good front at Mississippi State on Saturday. And then they have 2 excellent tight ends in Isaac Nauta and Jeb Blazevich against Tennessee's defense with the linebackers and the safeties. And as dinged up as Tennessee has been defensively, that's an area of concern as well. Now, Georgia defensively, boy, this is such a good group. Very experienced, talented, fast, physical, and they bring a lot to the table. You start on the defensive line with Trenton Thompson. He's a guy that is a dominant force and has been since he's been a freshman and gets better each and every year. So the middle of the offensive line for Tennessee is going to be huge. They really could use Ja'Shawn Robertson back in this game, and they need better play from left guard if it's not Ja'Shawn Robertson. Then for Georgia, with their set of linebackers, as good as you'll find in the SEC or in the entire country. Lorenzo Carter, Davin Bellamy, Roquan Smith, Natrez Patrick. I mean, these guys are all fast and athletic and experienced. Same thing with the back end and the secondary. They're very experienced, fast, and athletic. They're also tall in the secondary as well, with 3 of their 4 starting DBs 6 feet or taller. This is a really good Georgia defense. Now, Georgia will also have, much like the Florida game, the advantage in place kicking, and Tennessee is still missing kicks. Georgia has been much improved this year in making kicks, and late last year as well. Tennessee will have the punting advantage. Trevor Daniel has been outstanding again this year. He's actually 3rd in the nation in punt yard average. But now some keys to this game for Tennessee. One, I think Tennessee in the red zone has to win offense and defense. Tennessee has struggled, one of the worst in the nation in red zone offense and defense. And that's an area they're pretty good in last year. And Georgia, the flip. Georgia was one of the worst in the nation last year in red zone offense and defense, and they are much improved this year. The run game. Yes, the run game. Tennessee's got to find a way to at least break even in rush offense and rush defense. Now, I know it's a tall task with Georgia's running game. Tennessee struggled stopping the run and the yards they gave up against Georgia Tech and being outrushed by both Indiana State and UMass. That's asking a lot. But if Tennessee can break even, they may be able to force Georgia to play a little bit out of character and maybe make enough plays in some other areas to have an advantage and win the game. So I think breaking even in the run game is big. Third, Quinn Dormity's got to have his best game. Too many his back foot backing up throws for Quentin Dormity. He's turned the football over 6 times. Quinn Dormity's got to be better. This has got to be his arrival game for Tennessee. They need playmaking from quarterback, not just a game manager. Another thing for Tennessee is they need a non-offensive touchdown, whether it's a fumble return for a touchdown, a pick six, or maybe a Callaway or Chandler punt or kick return. Tennessee has got to help its offense. Can't just rely on points from the offense. They got to find it from other areas and put some pressure on Georgia. And then the fifth key in this game for Tennessee against Georgia is they need one of their defensive linemen to have a breakout dominant game. We haven't seen that. There's a ton of recruiting talent on that D-line. We haven't seen someone have a game where they take over, whether it's Darrell Taylor, Jonathan Kongbo, Kyle Phillips, or any of the tackles. They need someone to have a dominant game. They flash, but they haven't taken over long stretches of a game or an entire game yet. Tennessee really needs that. Appreciate you watching. Enjoy the game. It'll be a fun atmosphere. There'll be some tension for sure, but it's such an important game for this Tennessee team in hopes of winning the SEC East. You got to get this game. You guys enjoy it, have fun, and then we'll be back here in 2 weeks after Tennessee's bye week to take a look at South Carolina. Be sure to call Jim Styles. Those initial meetings are free, 694-4484, jimstylescpa.com, and go to sportsradiownml.com for much more. Vince's View will have a ton of posts throughout the week and each and every week, and my blog is sponsored by Jim Styles CPA. Thanks again for watching. I'm Vince Ferrara. It's Vince's View, powered by Jim Styles CPA and our UT opponent analysis of Georgia. Take care.